finish up. So, Coach, would you begin?
All right, very disappointed in our performance. Been playing some pretty good basketball, and so to come on this stage and not play as well as we've been playing, it's kind of disappointing. But it wasn't because of these guys not going out and leaving all on the floor. I give credit to Florida. I thought the tempo was to their liking, and obviously when you look at what it came down to, I thought it came down to the offensive rebound. They shot it and went and got it, and I thought that was the difference in the game there. We didn't do a good job of putting bodies on them, and their freshman Johnson, I thought he had an outstanding game. The game was still right there in the balance with a little bit over 3 minutes to go, and they made plays. Some of the veteran guys made plays, some of the young guys made plays, and so that means survive. We didn't survive, so we're very, very disappointed. But not because these guys, they left it on the floor. So it's a tough loss.
All right, we'll take questions for either of the student athletes. Raise your hand, and we'll start right on the front row.
This is for both Daniel and Isaiah. First game Florida, he scored 51. This game 50. Two low-scoring games. Is just Florida's defense? Are they a bad matchup for you? What do you think happened in those two games offensively?
Daniel, could you go first?
I feel like we could have got anything that we wanted. It's just that, we couldn't execute. We shot ourselves in the foot down the stretch, and we couldn't get it, we couldn't get the shots that we took to fall. And then we just took some of the shots, and we settled on offense most of the time also.
We were playing to their tempo. And so, whenever we don't play our tempo, it's hard for us to get into our sets, and we didn't execute very well coming down the stretch. And knowing that they like the slower tempo than we did, we played to it, and we shot ourselves in the foot, like Dan said, and it gave them the edge, and you can see that in the game and the performance. If we would have played the fastest 40 ball, I think it would have been a way different outcome.
Hands up, other questions for either of the student athletes? All right, back to the front.
Welcome in. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. As we were out yesterday, due to the Arkansas Razorbacks noon tip-off, was kind of covering, picked out a spot to watch the game, and Arkansas, unfortunately, went out in the first round of their SEC tournament run, 66-50 to the Florida Gators. Pretty much all intents and purposes. No, nothing pretty much. The NCAA talk is officially over. It's all about the NIT. And you can chime in if you'd like to call in at the 1:45 hour. The question is, should Arkansas, if given the chance to play in the NIT for both men's and women's, in particular men's, would you like to see this team make its way into the NIT? I personally would like to see this team continue on. I know it's not the tournament that we all covet. If you aspire to play Division I basketball, but with such a young team, I think it would be really, really beneficial for this team to play more games, more basketball, just to get more cohesion, for the future of next year and also going forward. What do you think on that, Demetrius?
I'm kind of 50-50 with, because I think it can be detrimental to the future of Mike Anderson. I think a lot of people already are kind of calling for him to be relinquished of his position. So I think if he does go in, he has to string together some wins and to better Dan's NBA projection. Dan can't go in here having a bad game with these type of teams. So I think it's a 50-50 way. I think if he believes they can go in and win a couple of games and actually build chemistry playing those games, yes. But if he's just going to go out there just to play basketball, no. I think he has to be organized and very – they have to be in tune with it, because you can kind of tell yesterday they were into it that first half, but at the second half, it looked as if they kind of lost a little hope. I think they were in that fight. They were throwing blows that first half. But that second half, they came out a little lackadaisical.
The reason I'd like for this team to go to the NIT, if given the opportunity, is I think as a coach and as a staff, you get a chance to see the players that are still going to play. You get a chance to see your real team in a situation where you're not playing for the national championship, you're playing for a NIT championship. It's the tournament below the actual tournament. So that's why I think you get a chance to see who your real competitors are going to be in this very adverse situation. You're not in the tournament, so who's going to come out and play as if you want to be the national NIT champions and play as such. So I think that'll be something that would be a good thing to come out of, and also too, you get more experience. I'm a firm believer these kids need more and more playing time. I can go back to the days of Nolan Richardson. Those NIT games, how they help build, and I know we're 8 years in, and it's just some very unfamiliar territory for Arkansas. But any type of basketball for such a young team, and maybe if they do get on a run, Demetrius, they could get on a 4, 5, 6 game run, end up winning the tournament or getting to that championship game. Now you have something to truly build on. And either way this thing goes, Arkansas is still going to finish 17. If they were to get beat the first round, 17 and 16, so Coach Anderson would still have his 18 years of not a losing season. But, I know this staff the way I do. This is not a happy staff. They're not satisfied with the way this season ended. And I know each and every one of those guys are going to go ahead and roll up their sleeves and really attack the recruiting street with a vigor, because I really think this is a very, very important year. You got to get some bucket getters. You have to go out and get grown men. And we had Nolan Richardson on, Demetrius, a couple of days ago. And you have to get toughness. This boils down to finding some tough kids that are mentally tough, physically tough. And, as Nolan said, they don't shy away when the games get tough. When you get into tournament play and when you get into the March Madness, it's about the tougher teams surviving and advancing. You can't play finesse basketball and expect to make a deep run into the NCAA tournament or any type of tournament for that matter, Demetrius.
And I think anytime you're in tournament play, you have to have a score that can attack the basket. I don't think you really win tournaments purely off shooting, because you just have such a up and down shooting streak. I think you have to have those guys, especially those big men, that can score you those inside buckets and those physical points when no one's shooting well. And I think that's really what Arkansas was missing. We had nobody that was really driving the lane and attacking the basket that second half. Everybody wanted to shoot threes. So I think until we get that the ability to really score at will close to the basket, I think Arkansas is always going to struggle.
Yeah, it doesn't help that, you go almost 8 minutes and then the remaining 8 minutes of the second half without scoring a bucket. That doesn't help your cause. But it was not for a lack of effort. I just felt that, the better team won. The team that played with the higher sense of urgency was able to advance and move on, and that was the Florida Gators. But we're going to step away, let you hear more of the post-game press conference with Coach Mike Anderson, sophomore sensation Daniel Gafford, and freshman sensation Isaiah Joe. And then following those, we'll have Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. It's on the Hill with Pat Jenkins, KDSJ 479.
They're a real aggressive team, and we knew that they were going to crash the boards going into the game. We just didn't adjust to it. We didn't match their intensity.
All right, we'll excuse Daniel and Isaiah. You can return to the locker room. Thank you, and we'll continue on with questions for Coach Anderson. If you'll raise your hand, and we'll get a floor microphone to you. Let's start right in the front.
Mike, I know you said the other day you'd get Kayvon Allen's best shot. It seems like he always plays great against Arkansas. Even when he was struggling, he was 5 for 31 his last 4 games, but today he played really well. Just what do you think of his performance and the fact he always seems to playing you guys seems to bring out the best in him?
Well, obviously, he's from the state of Arkansas. He wants to perform well against the Razorbacks, but I thought we did a good job up until going down the stretch, and I think his experience kind of paid off for him. They made some plays for him, and so he's a good player, basketball player.
Let's go to the right side on the aisle.
Mike, in looking back over the season, you've talked a lot about the inconsistency of your team. I mean, you go into LSU, you beat them there, you almost take down Kentucky in Rupp Arena. How challenging has that been for you to deal with this streakiness and inconsistency?
At the beginning of the year, I talked about patience. You got to have long patience with this basketball team, because as the year progresses, you hope they pick up on the things that you talk about. And so it seemed like every time, we go to a different part of the season, it was like a new chapter for these guys. So even coming here, it's a new chapter. I thought, that adversity took place, and we met it head on, and then we started figuring out some things. But it's a challenge with so many new guys. But at the end of the day, I think they're still, it falls under my responsibility. And I thought for the most part, they grew, they got better. And even as we played today, we didn't play as well as I thought we were capable of playing. But defensively, you think about it, they scored 60 some odd points. I think with 3 minutes and 51 seconds, it's like a 6 or 8 point ball game, and we're right.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our A edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio as we come to each and every day here on KDSJ 479, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And unfortunately, Arkansas traveled to Nashville, Tennessee, first round of the SEC tournament, and was upended by the Florida Gators, final score of 66-50. And we thought we'd catch up and talk about that, plus a little more, with our good buddy of the Democrat Gazette, Scotty Borderland. Scotty, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
Thanks for having me again, Pat. I appreciate it.
You had a chance to observe last night's first round ball game between Arkansas and Florida. Arkansas falls 66-50. Scotty, talk about what were some of the contributing factors for Arkansas bowing out in game one.
Yeah, I thought there were probably about three things that kind of stood out to me. Well, for one, we knew that since the Kentucky game, when Arkansas almost went into rough and won, they've been shooting the three really well. I think they shot at least 45% from three-point range.
Good point.
In 4 straight games for the first time in Mike's tenure. And, I think they've been taking a lot better care of the ball. I think in that same span since Desi had been put in the lineup, when him and Jalen Harris were on the floor, I think Arkansas's turnover rate was right around 15%, which is really good. You obviously wanted to take care of the ball, and that's something Mike mentioned that they kind of had to shore up toward the end of that losing streak, and they did. And yesterday, Jalen Harris ties the season high with 5 turnovers. I think he had 4 over the last 9 minutes of the first half, and had another one in the second. And then they just got outmanned on the glass. I think Florida rebounded almost 53% of their misses yesterday, which is outrageous.
Wow.
And Arkansas just wasn't tough enough yesterday. And Melvin Watkins kind of said yesterday, the way that Arkansas plays, they might give up a few offensive rebounds or might get out rebounded a little bit, but when the margin is that big, it really sets you up for failure.
You talk about toughness. Seems to be the common word for this year's version. Not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a situation where every physical team, in particular at the guard spots that Arkansas faced, you talk about Ole Miss, Florida, Tennessee, just the real bulky guards. Mississippi State comes to mind, and even LSU. Arkansas's guards had a lot of problems with those types of back courts. In particular, yesterday, it really showed in the way Jalen Harris, it just didn't seem like he was really aggressive and really kind of succumbed and had some real unforced turnovers. How much improvement does Arkansas have to make from now until the beginning of next year at that position? Because I think you have to be solid at point guard. And I just didn't feel like Arkansas got real solid play at that spot. How big is it that they have to fix that position going into next season?
I think you're going to find greater success if your point guard is someone that is reliable, number one, can play unselfish basketball and then find, the better playmakers on the team and set them up and put them in positions to be successful, number two. And then I think also a guy like Jalen, I think a lot of people have a tendency to pile on him because on top of being turnover prone at times and playing out of control a bit too. I thought he was played too fast yesterday.
Right.
I thought that was pretty concerning. I saw that kind of starting a little bit early, even when Arkansas had a lead. But his jump shot, he did not feature any kind of a perimeter game at all. And so I think he's got to really hone in on that over the summer and over the off season. Because for a good part of yesterday and for a good part of this season, when Jalen Harris and Gabo Boyne shared the floor, and they did so more over the last 5 or 6 games, Arkansas was playing 3-on-5 offensively, and you're not going to win games like that,
right.
Especially when those other 3 guys aren't contributing at a high rate.
When you talk about,
so the guard spots obviously got to get better. I think Desi's going to be a positive going into next year.
right.
Just in terms of strictly point guard play, I think Jalen's got to hone in on his jump shot, playing a little bit more under control, and I think Desi needs another big year or a big offseason too.
When you look across the SEC, it's quite obvious all the great teams have one thing in common, and that's a really, really dynamic power forward, a guy that can step out, shoot three, put it on the floor, or post up around the basket when given a matchup advantage. So Arkansas has really got to improve that in my position. I think that out of all positions was a position that hurt Arkansas the most with its inconsistency night in and night out. You look at Reggie Chaney. Reggie's a guy I think really has to make the biggest jump because, to me, Scotty, he held his own self back. You know, it was just great effort, not so good effort. Yesterday, first half, I thought he played, but there was just times in that second half I just didn't feel that he was playing up to Reggie Chaney potential. How big is it for Reggie to have a great sophomore year for this team, to have any type of success to make it to the tournament and beyond next year?
Yeah, I think it's pretty big too. I think that group, and me and you have long said this, like we know that Reggie's got like the highest ceiling and the most potential of anybody at that 4 spot at the power forward position anyway. So like you said, I thought he was really, really active yesterday in the first half, and you know he got caught on some ball screens and didn't switch properly, and I think he got burnt a couple of times on that, gave up a couple of threes, but just didn't feel comfortable, and I guess Mike just didn't like what he saw and opted to play Gabe 26 minutes, which I'm against personally, but I think Reggie's got great potential. Like, he's got a great frame, athletic, can really run the floor, and I think he's like we talked about probably before the season. I think somebody in that group has got to develop a jump shot that allows Arkansas a guy who can stretch the floor. And this year it would have been really nice to have that, obviously, so opponents couldn't just sit Dan's lap and give whoever the four guy was an open jump shot whenever he wanted it. That really held Arkansas's offense back. So Reggie's got the ability to do it. We've seen him knock down a bunch of, I don't want to say a bunch, but enough mid-range jumpers to know that he can knock that shot down. So I think kind of squaring that away a little bit more over the summer would be really big for him.
Scotty, no NCAA tournament, that's off the table. Does this team, if given the opportunity, in your opinion, accept an NIT bid if they're awarded the opportunity to play in that lesser tournament? I know you always want to go NCAA, but in my opinion, do they take it, or do they just work toward going out and recruiting a couple better players and trying to get this thing right? What's your opinion on that?
Man, I think if they get an NIT invitation, I think they're going to take it. I don't see this team playing an NIT game at home, and I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. I don't think their resume is strong enough to warrant them playing one final home game, potentially. But I could see them potentially traveling. I just don't think that this group or the coaching staff kind of wants the season to end on the note that it did yesterday. Like, that was right. That was pretty terrible. Like, that was, I think, in terms of offensive efficiency rating, that was their 3rd worst game of the year. And so two of your 3 worst offensive performances of the year come to one team against Florida. And they don't want to go. I don't think they want to go out like that. I don't think any of them do. The staff either. And Mike said he would encourage the guys to go out, maybe play at least one more game. But if they do that, he said this yesterday, he said they've got to put a better performance up than they did yesterday, if they play again. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Well, my man, as always, love having you on. You have a great weekend, and I'm sure you and I'll catch up next week, and we'll have a lot to talk about, NIT or not. But as always, thanks for taking that time out on the hill, Scotty.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys.
That was Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. We're going to continue on at the SEC tournament with post-game from players Daniel Gafford, Isaiah Joe, and also head coach Mike Anderson. And then following more Arkansas post-game, next up, Kevin McPherson of AR Hoops. Time to talk a little Arkansas recruiting. It's on the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
I mean, the main thing I learned was I had to come back and know that I had a target on my back because, I was one of the main guys that did. I was one of the guys that did the scoring last year with the, guards that we had with most of the seniors too. And then now just coming back, I was going to be one of those main guys just coming to the court. So the main thing I learned is I have to come out and play every night, play strong, and do what I had to do. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough loss. I mean, I wanted to go far in this tournament, and I wanted to go to the NCAA tournament also. So I just wanted to come out and give it my all to get the right outcome we had wanted, but, we just couldn't get it in the end.
Rebounding today,
I mean, they just basically played way stronger than what we did. I mean, they came in there and they were aggressive, and they wanted every rebound more than anybody on this team. Even like from the bigs to the guards on their team, everybody wanted it.
A couple guys in here said Florida out-toughed you today. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, because, they out-toughed us on the glass. They, out-toughed us when it came to us running our offense. They didn't let us run what we wanted. Then they, when it came to us being on defense, they pretty much, banged us in on the inside. We didn't have an answer for them.
You guys were confident coming in. So how disappointing is that to not have that effort today?
Real disappointing. Like I said, every single guy in this room played their hearts out. They gave everything they could. So,
what's next?
Just waiting to see what happens with the NIT situation, I guess.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our A edition with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And we just had on Arkansas Democrat Gazette Scotty Borderland to talk about yesterday's very disappointing 66-50 loss in the first round of the SEC men's tournament in Nashville. And we want to continue on because now it gets into what's next for the University of Arkansas. And what's next is recruiting. And what better person to talk to that about than our good buddy of AR Hoops and Hogville.net, Kevin McPherson. Kevin, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
Good to be back with you.
Get off into it. Arkansas bows out 66-50 in quarterfinal round versus Florida. Quite obviously, very disappointing as all hopes of an NCAA possibility are out the window. Now you move on into NIT, but in particular, you move on into recruiting. When you look at this team, Kevin, give us an update on in your particular opinion. What are what are the particular needs that this team has to go out and bring to Fayetteville to make sure that they have a better chance of making it to next year's NCAA?
Well, they're just going to. Mike Anderson said they need to get older, and I think that's right. They're looking at JUCOs. I think they're definitely coming for senior grad transfers that can come in and help. But the core, you got to keep a group of guys. I think those are the kind of guys like an Isaiah Joe, Reggie Chaney, Desi Seals, a few more guys that you want back, Mason Jones, Jalen Harris, the core guys that make up the bulk of that rotation. But you're probably looking at 4 or 5 new faces. We know Justice Hill's in the fold, but I think getting bigger on the wings and inside with guys that can knock down perimeter shots. We saw that none of Arkansas's post players could step out and hit a face-up shot. And we saw defenses take advantage of that and sag off and sink in on Dan. Jalen Harris also was a blind spot out there from the perimeter shooting the ball. So you're going to have to address, I think, perimeter shooting not only in the backcourt but with your big guys.
When you look at the point guard spot, I feel that has to have a chance to be a championship caliber ball club. It has to start with the point guard. He's like your quarterback of the team. I think we had a momentary loss of Kevin McPherson, but we'll get him back here momentarily. We're going to call him live. We're going to make Kevin feel special, Demetrius, is what we're going to do. Momentarily, we'll have him back on. Demetrius, it was so hot.
Hi, this is Kevin. Please leave a message.
How you doing, my man? The talk was so good.
We got disconnected. I don't know what happened. I looked down at my phone. We got disconnected.
Hey, when you're talking real stuff, sometimes it's so much the phone doesn't want. It wants to stop it and reset it. That's what happened with us. We were talking really, really good stuff. And Kevin, my question to you was, when you look at Jalen Harris, when your point guard is not being guarded offensively, it's a sign of a major disrespect, not only to the player but to the entire team, I believe. When you look at the JUCO point guards, because I feel that's the way Arkansas is going to have to go, who are some of the guys that you feel Arkansas will have its best chance to add at those spots to this team next year?
Yeah, I think they could be looking. I don't know if they're going to zero in on a straight up point guard on the JUCO level. You know, Desi Sills can help as a combo. He's better. We see him better playing off the ball actually than being the one. But you've also got Justice Hill on campus, so and you know, shooting is probably his weakness as well. Although I expect him to be much better than 12 to 15% from there. But bottom line is, if you're looking at JUCO, I think they're looking at some combo guards and guys like that. You know, we talked about Javion Hamlet. We talked about some of these other guys, Jalon Pipkins. So I think if you can just improve and have more than one shooter that's a pure shooter, and Isaiah Joe, we know Mason Jones' percentage is pretty good, but he's pretty streaky. But if you can put more guys on the floor and have more options, that was the problem I thought this year. And we really saw in Keyshawn Embry-Simpson, his three-point shooting was down, and then he was hurt. You know, they didn't even have him in the rotation yesterday. Leaves Jalen Harris on the floor longer. That's more of a blind spot. And I thought Jalen had really struggled yesterday.
Right. When you look at Arkansas post play, you know, it's quite obvious Daniel will be moving on to play in the NBA next year. The bigs, and I think this is the most important year for recruiting bigs here at the University of Arkansas, unlike any season that I've ever had to cover. How important is it, you know, that Arkansas gets a couple of those 6'9", 16 kids? Because it came out yesterday, Trey Mitchell put out his top 8. Arkansas was not on that list. Who are some of the guys? I know Raymond Hawkins will be making it official, but who are some other guys that this fan base needs to keep an eye on as possible, you know, bigs that could help initially once they get to campus?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Raymond Hawkins out of Findlay Prep, Sean Stiff out at Saddleback College, JUCO in California, and then, you know, they've got Mohamedou Diarra that could still be in the mix for them. He's a guy that would love to be at Arkansas, and they're still talking to him about a visit. But, you know, 6'10", the Stiff guys, 6'8", and 255. And, you know, all of those guys can play a little bit facing up and play around the basket. And, you know, Arkansas just really needs a forward that can knock down a shot.
Right.
Not, like I said, not one guy on this roster could do that. I mean, Reggie Chaney showed a little bit, and every once in a while Gabe and Adrian will give you something, but not enough.
When you look at this team going forward, you know, who are some of the guys, the core guys that, you know, you can look at and say, I anticipate them to be better? We mentioned Desi Sills. You know, who else? You know, Isaiah Joe, I really feel like has to, you know, study the game more, learn to move more without the basketball, and possibly add on a couple more pounds. But outside of those two, who will you be looking at to make the biggest jump from freshman to sophomore year going forward?
Wow. I mean, it's Reggie Chaney. Reggie Chaney has to, because now that middle is going to be wide open with Gafford leaving, and so that's the guy that's, and his per 40-minute numbers are really good. I think with him, he's just got to get a little. He's got to get a little, even though he's physically put together right. I don't think he knows how to use his frame and create space for himself around the basket. Also, continue to improve on that 15-footer when he's in the high post area, and just you know, he's got to get some stuff done. In terms of his not being such happy feet and putting the ball, you know, getting his footwork and putting the ball on the deck, because he's quick. He can get by guys.
Right.
So if he gets all that together, I think Chaney can give you some big minutes and big production.
Talking with Kevin McPherson of AR Hoops, also covers the Razorback recruiting for Hogville.net and for us here on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. But real quick, does this team go to NIT if given the opportunity, in your opinion, Kevin?
I think if given the opportunity to go to the NIT, they should go. Now, there's talk about Daniel Gafford. You know, what would be the value in him playing in NIT? He needs to, at this point, move on and, you know, not only try to prevent an injury that could come up with that, but also start working out for teams. Now, if you go back a few years ago, Michael Qualls, after the season, ended up getting hurt during a workout, and he ended up being an undrafted player. So you could get hurt doing just about anything.
Good point.
I'm of the opinion that you don't not play postseason because of injury, but I understand why people look at it that way, and certainly couldn't argue with that. But if Arkansas gets a bid to the NIT and accepts it, you hope Dan's part of that equation for the team, and you know, maybe for him to even maybe help improve his stock. I mean, I think there are things he could still do in some nationally televised games that might help him.
And you look at it, Kevin, this could be also, in my opinion, I was talking to my producer in the first segment of our show today. If you're Coach Anderson and that staff, you get a chance to find out who's going to really compete. You get a chance to see what your roster is going to look like. And I think, that's why you get more games, because now you get a chance to see the competitiveness when you're not playing for the national championship and you're playing for something that's a step down. How will you compete? So I think that'll, it would be good if they were able to get playing time. And also, I think just for experience factor, more games can't do anything but help this ball club. But Kevin, as always, my man, thanks for taking time out on the hill, and we'll catch up next week.
Always love being with you, Pat. Thank you.
All
Look
right,
forward
bud.
to it.
That was Kevin McPherson of AR Hoops, and we're going to give you a little Cameron Curl audio. We caught up with Cameron for media availability on their initial last practice before spring break, and here's what Cam had to say, and then we're going to come out and close this thing out and get our weekend started. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ. It's Pat Jenkins here of OTH. That's right, On the Hill with Pat Jenkins, Sports Talk Radio. We come to you each and every day here, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2 on KDSJ 479. Be sure and tune in if you want to hear about SEC and the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's OTH. Holla.
Good. We had a real good spring. I think the whole team really had a real good spring this spring. I feel like I've made some strides. I feel better. Like I feel bigger, faster. So I feel like I've been doing pretty good. Yeah, I feel like it's a different feeling out there. It's more competition, stuff like that. I feel like we coming together real good.
You guys coming out, how you like this split of 7 before spring, 7 after spring break, except where I guess 8 after spring break, but how you like that split?
It's cool. Like it makes us have to finish. We can do good these first 7 practices, then the last 8 we can do bad. So it really makes us finish coming off spring break.
I was just riding over there. It doesn't seem like you've had very many really devastating injuries. You've had some nicks and bruises. This chance, this 10 days here, or whatever it is, to kind of get some people back that are dinged up,
Yeah, it's just give us some rest so we can come back and finish. We can take our mind off football for a little bit and come back ready to go.
You guys are going to kind of space out practice, take some time off.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to work? What are you guys going to do?
We just got this week off. We come back on. We got to be back Sunday for a team meeting, so we just got from Friday to next Sunday, really.
Yeah. You feel like this team can rebound pretty well? I know last season didn't go like you guys wanted, bounce back this season.
Yeah, I feel like nobody want to go through that again. Nobody like that. We don't want to go through that again. So we're going to do whatever we can. We're going to compete more. We're going to go harder. It's just, like I said, it feels like it's a different feeling around the whole facility.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. We let you hear audio from junior free safety Cameron Curl talk about spring football, just the things that they've been working on, how practice is going. Also, too, want to give a shout out to our guest, Scotty Borland of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, for coming on talking Fastest 40. Also, to Kevin McPherson from AR Hoops and Hogfield.net. He, too, talked recruiting of the Fastest 40, and want to give a thank you to my producer and co-host, Demetrius Johnson, that we've had a great week. Want to let everyone know, once again, Arkansas was unable to move on to the semifinal round as they were up in it.